Well, I want to know where they put Romanov's trampoline after he was done jumping off it like that. Man, did he ever leave his feet?
Yes, I want hitting. I want checking. I want physicality. I want contact. In fact, I want more of it.
It can't change from game to game. It can't change from period to period. It can't change from preseason to regular season to playoffs. It has to be consistent across the board.
I love the game. That's why I care what it's safe.
You can't have it both ways. We always try and have it both ways.
Stick was on the ice one game, and it was just a train wreck waiting to happen, and boy did it happen, and I want to see more.
For me, this is one of the super easy ones. Kicking, match penalty, suspension, done. Get it out of the game.
Hi, folks, and welcome to an impromptu episode of Tough Call Podcast. This wasn't planned, but I've been on social media a lot today over the course of last night and then today, and there's a lot of things being said by both fan bases of the Stanley Cup final that it really needs to be addressed. So I thought I'd take the time. I posted a bunch of videos last night and this morning breaking down some of the more controversial plays from Game 2. There's enough in Game 2 to create a whole episode. But there's just a lot in the comments that's just not accurate. And I thought I'd try and clear some of the things that I said up and some of the things that both fan bases are saying about each other and about the teams. I mean, I know some Oilers fans might not like what I'm going to say here, but first and foremost, I think it's important that as Oilers fans, I'm an Oilers fan myself, as you know, it's important that we admit that the officiating didn't cost us that hockey game last night. There was more to it than that. I think that's one of the most important things we need to recognize is, we had our chances to win that game. We had our chances to win Game 1 for sure, and Bobrovsky stoned us cold, and that happens sometimes, and it is what it is. But we have to give the Panthers credit for what they're doing defensively, especially on the penalty kill. And, we've through it all, I'm not saying it hasn't been frustrating, but through it all, we've still had our chances to score, and we haven't been able to crack that code yet. It's as someone who runs Tough Call and someone who wants to see the game stay safe, as a hockey fan, I'm watching the game, under the current rules and the way the standard is. It's nice to see the Oilers push back the way they did physically. It's nice to see them. I'm not in the market for kneeing players. I'm not in the market for flying elbows or whatever, but that's what I want to talk about is that terminology. Was that really a flying elbow? Was that really a knee? Were there things done the other way, or were there things done on both sides? Let's talk about these plays first and foremost for what they are. That's what I have to do as an Oilers fan. It's easy to say, we should have them out of the game, and Bennett shouldn't be able to suit up ever again because he's dirty, and that's true. But as running Tough Call, I want to be as impartial as possible, and I want to show Oilers fans maybe some of the things that look at it from another point of view in some of these plays, and for any Florida fans that happen to be tuning in as well. I know a lot of you have tuned in to my YouTube channel and attacked me in the comments for that. I want you to look at things from, without your. Every time an Oilers fan says something about what a Florida Panthers player does, the whataboutism is insane, and that has to stop. What about this? What about that? Well, my video wasn't about those. It was about this one incident. What do you think about this incident? And that's what I'm going to do today is talk about each incident and how I see it. Now, some stranger, you're absolutely right. I don't think I have seen that many people blaming the loss on the officiating. I really haven't seen that much. I'd say a very, very small percentage. There's plenty of complaints about the officiating. It's going both ways. And of course, somehow, miraculously, I am once again biased for both teams in the same series. I've been accused of being impartial to the Panthers, and obviously a Panthers lover somehow. And of course, the majority of people understand I'm an Oilers fan already going in, so they assume that I automatically have some sort of bias. Um, I really don't. I really try and look at things from a neutral lens. Maybe I fail sometimes. Maybe I do. It is hard to get rid of that bias, not only as an Oilers fan, but as a Panthers not liker. I don't want to say hater, but a Panthers not liker. It's very difficult to give players like Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk the benefit of the doubt when they constantly do things. The same way Leafs fans have a hard time giving Brad Marchand the benefit of the doubt when he's constantly doing things. How do you say this one was one that he didn't mean to do? So some of the things I'm going to look at tonight are the Leon Draisaitl hit on Barkov. We'll look at the Foegele kneeing, and then we'll look at the comparable Bennett play on Bouchard. Probably, if I have time, the Ekblad choking incident. I can't believe I'm even saying that. It's insane to me. And then just that delay of game, too. I'd like to talk about that. So, I don't know. I'll just pull up a clip here. Okay. So, first of all, I have seen I have seen a person say, or there's a clip going around. This is one of the things I want to address. There's a clip going around on social media posted from an Oilers fan that is after the Foegele kneeing incident. It shows the contact after it happens, and then it makes it Foegele missed, and Louis Sternen didn't even get hit. But I'm going to show you first the clip of the knee. I slowed it down and broke it down, zoomed in and really made it slow here to show you that. Look at how awkwardly that knee bends back. Like there's clear knee on knee contact. This isn't pointing out whether I think it was caused by the Florida. You can't tell me that it didn't happen. Like when you look at this, you have to realize that knee goes back unnaturally so. So there's definitely knee on knee contact. The debate needs to be not whether it happened or not, or whether he was faking, because he's not faking. If anyone's knee went back the way about to here, you're going to be laying there. That hurts. I mean, there's the contact, and then look at it just slingshot back. Like it's hard to watch, right? Like. So don't tell me it didn't happen. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to get off social media. Don't be those fans that say he was faking, that it didn't hurt, that he was wrong to lay there for as long as he did. I would too. I'm sorry, I would. Even if I'm able to come back next shift, that's a shocking play to have happen. You're going to take a moment and think, is everything still in place? That's a knee. Like that's a knee we're talking about. So we have to make sure to be as understanding as possible looking at that from the other side. How would we feel if that was an Oilers player? So there's that. Now, to get to the actual breakdown of the play, I'm going to pull up another clip of the same incident, but it just goes through it a little differently. It's part of my video from the breakdown. Where'd it go? It's gone. It's gone. Hold on a second. I'll get it right back here. But I don't really honestly think that it was, I don't think it was an intentional knee. I don't think it was a perfect body check too. I think we have to look at it and realize that, it's a check that did go wrong. Under my scale, it is a suspension. Under my scale, this is an obvious suspension. There wouldn't be even a debate about it. But so when we see Foegele approach Louis Sternen, I know Kevin Bieksa said on the Sportsnet panel that he only goes forward. He doesn't go sideways, but I feel he does the adjustment sideways, first of all. I think he's lined up for really good contact there, and then at the last second, he does lean to his left a little. He doesn't really extend the knee out or reach that far, but he does change his angle of approach by turning so that the knee naturally goes to the left. And you can see it's well out in front here. I know this angle, some people like to say one angle makes it look bad and one doesn't. The angle doesn't make it look bad. The play makes it look bad. Like, it is bad. Even if he was just going for a routine check, he was still leading with that knee. It's still stuck out, still turning towards his opponent, and that knee was going to lead that contact, even if body contact followed. If Lewis Sterren didn't try and get out of the way, and he did go shoulder to shoulder, the knee still would have made contact. So we have to accept that and recognize that. Look at his body position right now, and look how far out his left leg is from the rest of his body, his core, because he's trying to turn into his opponent, and then the knee goes out. So it is, I'm not saying the intent is there. We can debate about intent. We can debate that he was trying to injure. I know the Florida fans are saying he was trying to injure him. I don't think that's true. I think he was just honestly trying to make a legit body check, but he did it wrong. It was a kneeing penalty. It was at the very, very minimum a 2-minute minor, but for me, that is a 5-minute major. There's just too much leg extension. There's too much leading with the knee. So I think the 5-minute major was a good call. Under my tough call system, that would be a automatic minimum 3-game suspension, just based on the nature of the force and the fact that it was kneeing. But in the real world, I would not expect a suspension for this. If they suspend for this, I'll be very disappointed, but I don't see that happening at all. But I think the 5-minute major was the correct call. And I'm going to compare that now to the Bennett hit on Bouchard, because I know people are saying it's the same, and I just don't think that it is. I know it's Sam Bennett, right? But when you watch
that Sam Bennett hit on,
oh yeah, that was my that's on my YouTube for my review. But when you watch this Bennett hit, his legs are far apart like Fogel's were, and then they come together. He does turn a little bit, but he doesn't lead with the knee. He doesn't drive the knee forward, in my opinion. And we're looking at his left foot, and I know people are pointing this out. He pushes off with his left foot, and they think that's to drive the knee. It's not. His knee goes forward and across the front of his body because he's trying to swing his hips. He's trying to get his right hip out in front and make hip-to-hip contact. But because of the nature of the contact, leg contact is created. And this happens a lot more than people realize. It just doesn't result in knee-on-knee contact because the body's still there. But because Bouchard tries to get out of the way, and I know that's what they said about Lotsryan, but because Bouchard tries to get out of the way, that's what creates the on-leg contact here. That's why, guys, Sam Bennett got a tripping penalty. Okay, we have to realize that. He got a tripping, not a kneeing penalty. So it's not like they looked at Bennett's hit and Fogel's hit and said they were the same thing and then just gave Bennett 2 minutes and gave Fogel 5 minutes. What they said was Fogel actually kneed. They called it kneeing because it was a knee. And they looked at Bennett and they said he did not lead with his knee, so they called it a tripping minor. That's the difference between those two hits. One is leg on leg contact that was created by a hit gone wrong, and one was knee on knee contact created by leading with the knee. That's why they're different. So that's why Bennett got 2 minutes, and that's why Fogel got 5 minutes. I legit believe those were both the right calls. Bob the goalie, I'll bitch about the officiating like anyone, but I also thought they got the Fogel call right. This is what I'm talking about, people. Thank you, Bob. Good to see you. Bitch about the officiating, yes, but recognize that they're not out to get us. I've seen all day people on both sides. They obviously have written the script that Florida was going to win the cup. They want for winning the cup. And on the side, they've written the script that the Oilers are the league's darlings. Could you imagine? You know, there's the conspiracy about Canadian teams, and then we have people that think that they're favoring the Oilers in the final, and the only reason they're in the final is because they were favored all playoffs. And then we know that's not true. We know there's that conspiracy theory from the other side about how the league doesn't like Canadian teams. So why would they push for Edmonton, right? But at the same time, they don't. All the stuff about them wanting Florida to win. No, I think the officiating is just bad. I think the officiating is inconsistent. I shouldn't say bad. I should say inconsistent. And that's the problem. The standard changes from game to game. It changes from period to period. That's the sort of thing I don't like. The inconsistency of the standard and the calls. But generally what they call, I think they call legit penalties. I really do. It's just the inconsistency of how they're called. That's the problem. But I don't think anyone's out to get us. I think every team feels that they're being screwed over, and every team is right. They're just not being screwed over any more than any other team. We're all getting screwed. Let's just say it. Both teams are getting screwed left, right, and center. It's not intentional. It's just what happens because of the way the officials are directed to call the game from the league. Speaking of which, now I'm going to look at that. Let's look at that delay of game now, because this is a good example of how even when there's rule written, how it can still be misconstrued. And we had, of course, again, we had the Sportsnet panel. We had the Sportsnet panel say that because contact was initiated with the puck inside the blue line, that this should be a delay game. That's not, first of all, that's not the interpretation of the rule, even if I was going to interpret it. But to me, that's not even how it's written. So we're going to talk about where that puck is touched and when it goes out and all that. We'll look at that closely, but like look how hard that is to see in real time. It's barely just inside the line. So if you're looking at that as an official, how are you making that call? Like, it's just so close to call in real time. It's really hard to see. Is the puck in or out? And is it in when they first touch it? And is it out when they shoot it? Here is the rule. We're looking at the wrong sentence, people, and I'm going to show you what I mean. But here's the first sentence we need to look at. The determining factor shall be the position of the puck when it was shot or batted by the offending player. The determining factor shall be the position of the puck when it was shot or batted by the offending player. That is the key sentence. The determining factor shall be that. Underneath, they highlighted the sentence on the Sportsnet panel. If contact with the puck occurs while the puck is inside the defending zone and subsequently goes out of play, the minor penalty shall be assessed. And people are running with that, saying, well, contact was made inside the defending zone first, and then the puck went out of play. So that's delay of game. That's the determining factor shall be the position of the puck when it was shot or batted by the offending player. And I was talking with Dave Jackson, ESPN rules analyst, former NHL referee. We have conversations quite a bit. He's really good to talk to if you want to reach out and ask him questions. But we talk to each other about a lot of these calls. And he's telling everyone, look, the rule is the determining factor shall be the position of the puck when it was shot or batted by the offending player. It's when it leaves the stick. And I agree. Even though there is contact with the puck that occurs inside the blue line, what are we going to do when a player picks the puck up feasibly? And really, they could pick the puck up behind their net, snowplow the puck to the blue line. And this is what I said on Twitter last night. They could snowplow the puck to the blue line, then flick it out. And what, are they going to get a delayed game penalty because they touched the puck, started with it way behind their own net? That's not. It's when the shooting motion is started. So you could argue, if you're watching this play, you could argue that the shooting motion was started inside the blue line, because when you watch, I fast forwarded too far. When you watch the player skate to the blue line with the puck, it is clear that he touches the puck first inside the blue line here. And the question is, where does the puck leave his stick for me? And to me, it leaves it after the blue line. Now, another important thing to consider is, because it's inside the zone, just because it touches the blue line, the first plane of the blue line right here, that doesn't mean that it's out of the zone yet. It has to clear the back part of the blue line. Because think about it, if the puck was in the zone and a team needed to hold the puck in for offside, it's not offside until it clears the neutral zone side of that plane. So it has to be out in the neutral zone. So did that puck cross the blue line after it was shot enough to be considered in the neutral zone? Now I feel it does. I feel where it leaves the stick is past that blue line. So I think this is the right call. But the main thing for the way the rule is written, if we look again here, when does he start his shooting motion? When would you say that shooting motion starts? Players do this all the time. When they're skating up to the red line and they don't want it to be icing, they push the puck forward past the red line and then release it. So is that what he's doing here? For offside, they do the same thing. They push the puck in the zone and then they dump it in. To me, you can't say that he started the shooting motion right now. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. We have to. They're too good. That he pushes that puck forward and intentionally keeps it on his stick and doesn't release it until right there. His stick starts to go up, see? And then he throws the puck. It's not a continuous shooting motion. He's pushing the puck. It's still on his stick. And then he launches it out of the zone. That's the way I interpret that rule. So he doesn't start the shooting process until after his stick is in the neutral zone. We have to give players the benefit. If we're going to give Cale Makar the benefit of the doubt, we all remember that play where what they're saying is he wasn't touching the puck on that delayed offside, and it's intentionally done, basically, right? We have to give these players the benefit of the doubt that they know what they're doing, that they're smart, and they intentionally did that. That he held on to that puck long enough till it was in the neutral zone before he shot it. We can't say that just because he was touching the puck inside the zone first, that automatically becomes delay of game no matter when he shoots the puck. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't make sense to apply that logically to all situations. What's the contact in that following sentence can only refer to the shot. The second sentence clarifies the first. Let me read that again, guys, because I think it makes good sense. I'm just looking at something else. The contact in that following sentence can only refer to the shot. The second sentence clarifies the first. That's right. So the contact that we're talking about is if the contact for the shot, if the start of the shooting process happens, if the shot takes place inside the zone, it's delay a game. If it takes place outside the zone, it's not delay a game. And to me, this shot took place outside the zone very clearly. It's to me it's not even debatable, this call to me. Like the interpretation that they read on the intermission panel just doesn't even make sense. I don't see how you could possibly apply that to any other situation. So to me, they got this one right. And it's one of the ones that we keep talking about. What if they got a 5-on-3 there? How big a deal would that have been? 1-1 in the second period, and you're on a long 5-on-3, right? Like that could have been a big turning point. And I know some people are killing themselves all day going like, man, they blew that call. And I just don't think that's fair. I don't think they blew the call. I think they made the right call. And especially when you read the rule, I think the rule actually confirms the call on the ice more than it is an argument against it. So I'm just trying to have you look at it from another perspective and maybe take a step back and think about it rationally. If you still come to the conclusion, I'm not saying you have to agree with me completely. If you still come to the conclusion that you think it was a bad call, that's great. I just want you to take a second and breathe first before you go off on something, right? So good point, some stranger. This one for some reason isn't reviewable. Well, guess what? Next year it will be. Now, interesting tidbit, it will only be reviewable if obviously Sportsnet is also biased against Canadian teams. That's right. This type of play, that delay of game we're talking about, for anyone who just joined in, we were talking about the missed. I shouldn't even say it. I'm sorry. I said it. We're talking about that non-delay of game call, which for me was the correct call. That will be reviewable next year, but it will only be reviewable if a penalty is called. They can look at it and take the penalty away from what I understand. But if there's no penalty called, you can't review it and then call a penalty on something that was missed. So this one wouldn't have been reviewable because they didn't call a penalty. So even next year under the review system, this one would still, you just have to let it go. What I wonder then is if it will be kind of like the review for the 5-minute major now, where they call a 5-minute major, even if they don't know if a 5-minute major happened, they just call it so that they have the option to review it. And then they can either knock the penalty down to a 2-minute or rescind it. I think maybe this will encourage officials to call the delay of game per puck over glass penalty and then have an opportunity to review it and take it away. Better safe than sorry, right? That way they get to have both options. But if they decide right off the bat like this that they don't call it, then it's non-reviewable. I know when they brought in the offside review that, interestingly, some people thought that the linesman would call more offsides because they wouldn't want it to go to review, like goals scored on offsides. I mean, if you blow the play dead offside, then obviously no goals scored and they can't review it. So you can't be pointed out as you were wrong. But whereas if you're not sure, so you let the play go and then someone scores and then they rewind the tape, back it up, and you were wrong. I think some people thought that linesmen wouldn't want to be showed up like that. But as we saw, almost immediately it didn't happen. They were just calling the game as they saw. Whether they wouldn't think about the review. They just make the call in the moment. And if it was reviewable, it was. And if it wasn't, it wasn't. And so be it. I think the linesmen are good people. Like, I think that's what they'll keep doing. They'll look at this. They'll decide. They'll make a call. They'll make the same call they've always made. They won't factor in the review, I don't think. And it is what it is. And some of them will be reviewable and some of them won't. But I think we got to give the linesmen credit with how fast things happen and how close that was to the blue line and how many different moving parts they need to focus on at any given time. I think it's fair to say that they're proven right in the majority of cases. I think they do a pretty good job of following the play and making the right call in the moment. Some very difficult calls too. I think we have to give officials a lot of credit, a lot more credit than we typically do. We tend to focus big time on the negative, and we don't tend to give them a lot of credit when they get it right. So, so far, I think the calls that I've reviewed, I think they've gotten them right. There's not one where I've been like, that was a bad call. It's the ones that they missed or call inconsistently that I don't like. But to me, these haven't been misses so far. Let's see. The Leon Draisaitl play. I know there was a few I wanted to look at here. We did the Fogle kneeing. We did the Bennett kneeing. Let's look at the Draisaitl hit on Barkov now. Why not, right? So, again, to me, I don't think this was intent. Like, I don't think Leon Draisaitl is going in there with the intent. I know who this is. I'm going to rip his head off. I think he just is going in and wants to hit him as hard as possible. I really believe that. I think he's just trying to deliver a hard, really, really heavy hit. Now, he's trying to put oomph into it, but, people are calling this a flying elbow, and that's where I think Florida Panthers fans have to back off a little bit. He doesn't, I don't believe, leave both of his feet until after contact is made. If you watch this angle right here, so he's coming in, and his right leg is still well on the ice. His left leg is off because he's pushing into contact in the same way that I talked about how Sam Bennett did. It's not until his elbow hits Barkov's head. Now, this might not play well now that I paused it. We'll see what happens. But right there is where he hits the head. That's why I paused it there, because that is where the main bulk of the head contact happened. And as you can see, Draisaitl's right leg is clearly well planted on the ice. And then after he drives through the head, which is still bad, don't get me wrong. I mean, you're not supposed to drive through someone's head. But after he drives through the head and Barkov starts to fall backwards, that pressure is what brings Draisaitl off of his feet. So I don't think it was a flying elbow. It was just that he rose up. Look how low he is right now. If he just goes straight through Barkov now, there's no problem at all. But he pushes up and drives and explodes up and out into the head. That's the problem with this. That's why I wouldn't call it a charge. And that's why they didn't call it a charge. They called it a roughing. And I would call it more of an illegal check to the head. Because he does drive that elbow forward unnecessarily, and he does unnecessarily extend upward and outward, which is the wording of Rule 48. And to me, the head does take the bulk of the contact here. It's the principal point of contact. So I would call this an illegal check to the head. I'm not against the roughing call, except for the fact that it's only a 2-minute minor. I might lean towards an elbow and call it a more significant penalty. To me, this should have been a no-doubter 5-minute major. In my world, it's a suspension, but I am going to address that because in my world, in the tough call world, that's an easy suspension. But for those of you that might not know, my system is based on, of course, my own standard, my own set of rules, called to the standard I would like to see them called. And that would be a well-established standard. And then my suspension scale is very consistent with that's the type of play that would fall into a 3 to 5 game suspension. So the problem with today's NHL, if they can't possibly justify suspending Leon Draisaitl for that play right now, because they did not suspend Jacob Trouba for his elbow on Rodriguez. And they only fined him, and they did not suspend Sam Bennett for his punch to the head of Marchand. I was the first one to report that punch, honestly. I know Colby Armstrong put out a tweet that night, and a couple other people picked up on it. Whether that was on their own or not, I don't know. But I know I put out the very first video on YouTube, and it got like thousands and thousands and in the tens of thousands of views and comments that night. And, you know, a lot of people were talking about it because of that video. And they didn't have the good angle of that for 2 days, they say. Although the Department of Player Safety, I'm sure they went out and got all the angles they needed. If they really wanted to, they'd have access to that. But anyway, I didn't have that good angle for the couple days like everyone else. What I had was the first angle, and I still, that night, right after it happened, put out a video. It was so obvious to me that it was a sucker punch to the face. That's how obvious it was. It's the bad angle from behind, and I still knew it. And the league did absolutely nothing about that. They did nothing, like I said, about the Trouba one. There's been a couple of times where players have actually truly launched into body contact throughout the playoffs, and they haven't called anything. They haven't suspended anyone for it. So, and as much as I disagree with Kevin Bieksa when he says something has to be super egregious in the Stanley Cup final in order to get a 5-minute major, that's not how I roll. I think that things, you know, whether it's the first game of the preseason or whether it's the Game 7 overtime of the Stanley Cup final, the rule book is the rule book. A penalty is a penalty is a penalty. If it's a 5-minute major in the regular season, it's a 5-minute major in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's the way I look at it, especially the Stanley Cup final. But in today's NHL, that is not the case. They do have a scale where suspensions in the playoffs are worth more regular season. So like 1 or 2 regular season games is no suspension in the playoffs. And then like 1 game suspension in the playoffs is worth 2 to 3 regular season games, that sort of thing, and so on. So for them to all of a sudden turn around in the Stanley Cup final and suspend Leon Draisaitl for this hit where, in my eyes, he didn't even leave his feet. And he, you know, it was just an elbow to the head is what it was. And it was an elbow where his arm was actually down and low. It wasn't a reach-out chicken wing like Jacob Trouba. His arm was actually at his chest, and then he just pushed it out a little. To me, that's not nearly as dangerous as the things that they haven't suspended for already this playoff. So the precedent is set that that's not suspension worthy. So you could not possibly justify suspending anyone for that in the Stanley Cup final. I'm on the same page as Nabla. I assume that's Knoblach. And yeah, I am. I am on the same page there. So yes, it was a penalty. Most likely it should have been a 5-minute major. But is it a suspension? Florida fans, you got to look at this. And you can't possibly expect this to be a suspension when you know yourself that your own player should have been suspended and was not for something that to me was far more egregious. Now, there's a debate about that. Some people, Florida fans think that the Draisaitl play more dangerous than the Bennett sucker punch. And a lot of people think that Bennett was just bracing for the hit. And I actually had someone say on my YouTube channel, I wonder, I'll put it up now. We're talking about Bennett. We might as well put it up now. I'm going to show the collision with McDavid there. And I'm going to talk about that. To me, this was dirty.
Here's that Sam Bennett.
Just because he didn't connect doesn't mean it wasn't dirty. So here they are. It is an accidental collision. It's an accidental collision. I don't think he planned on getting in McDavid's path. I don't think McDavid planned on getting in Bennett's path. But look at how the two players react to this contact. Let's watch McDavid first. Stick is down. He pulls his stick out of the way and stays low. And look at Bennett right now. The exact opposite. He pulls his body back, but he raises his right hand just like he did to Marchand. He raised his right hand with the stick in it, grasping the knob, and he drives it forward at head height. Those two players are reacting very, very differently. And people, again, are saying Bennett was just bracing that way. And what I was laughing at is somebody under this video, if you go in the comments, you'll see it. I laughed so hard. Was trying to say, look, because he did it again. Sam Bennett did it again. That proves that that's just how he braces for contact. And the fact that he does it a second time is just evidence that that's how he braces. So, it was just an accident. And I'm thinking, I don't think him doing it again is proving what you think it's proving. I draw a very different conclusion from the fact that he did it a second time in the same playoffs. I don't think he's just trying to protect himself there and brace. This is clearly he's hoping to get. He doesn't reach out with the intention of, I'm definitely going to punch him in the temple, but I'm going to put everything I possibly can in the way in the hopes that I hit something. I think that's what he's doing. And McDavid luckily pulls his head out of the way and his shoulder gets hit first. And, we got lucky on that one. But to me, that is greasy, dirty, and it's exactly what he did to Brad Marchand when he should have been suspended already. I have no time for stuff like this. And, I don't have a bias against Sam Bennett. I have a bias against any player who does this. And it just so happens that Sam Bennett is somebody who does this routinely. So I don't have a bias against Sam Bennett because it's Sam Bennett. I have a bias against a player who does this, who happens to be named Sam Bennett, if you get my drift. If he cleaned up, I would love nothing more than for him to clean up his act and become the player that doesn't do that. I would love nothing more than that. I want players like Sam Bennett in the game. He's very, very high skilled. He's a good personality. He's fun to watch. He's a character, right? Every sport needs characters. But that is garbage that I don't want in the game. That's not the way for me. Like, that's not gamesmanship. That's not contact. Like people say, you want to know contact league and this, that, right? Bennett was trying to prevent Connor from getting onside. Yes, he was. Do you have to have your hand up and drive through at head height to do that? I think you can accomplish that in safer, more hockey, purposeful ways, shall we say. God, this is fun, guys. Thanks for taking part, and thanks for being part of the chat. There's a couple, I think there was something else I wanted to look at here. Excuse me, I just needed a drink. We did, I was going to look at that choking incident, right? Right. So I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Honestly. So I said in my review, so what we're talking
Here's
about.
a play where Alex.
I should just let you listen to my video, right? Can you hear
And of course, a little scrum ensued. And in that scrum, Aaron Ekblad pulled Evan Bouchard out of the pile, grabbed him from behind, and wrapped his right arm around his neck and dragged him backwards. Now, it doesn't look like much from there, but when we see it from the other angle, Bouchard's actually tapping out like a UFC chokehold. Now, without the benefit of an actual hearing to talk to these players and hear what actually went on, I'm looking at a tape and I'm seeing someone that looks like they're being choked. They're in obvious discomfort and they're asking to please let go of my neck. Going off.
So what do you do there, guys? Like, I mean, first of all, do you honestly believe
The pile,
that he
grabbed
was
him from behind.
intentionally trying to choke him? Do you, Bob? Yes, you have a bias against Sam Bennett. Okay. Do I? Would you? I try not to. I try. Like I did. I gave him the benefit of the doubt with that knee. I don't think it was a knee. I think it was a tripping. I think that was the right call. See, I'm capable of saying nice things about Sam Bennett. I'm capable of looking at a play he's involved in and considering walking away with the conclusion that it wasn't dirty. But when he does dirty things, I have to admit it. I guess that's what I'm saying. This choking thing, man. Like, I really don't believe that he was trying to choke. Like, I don't think his intent was I'm going to choke him. I hope his oxygen is cut off and he passes out. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But first of all, we get hung up on the word intent. Like, we need to get inside a player's head and assume what he's thinking in the moment. You can't possibly ever you'll never be able to do that. And if you think you're going to be able to guess what a player's thinking and you think you're going to be right about it, there's going to be way too many times you're not going to be right. And the stakes are way too high for these players as far as suspensions and stuff go and salary. The stakes are way too high to just guess what a player's thinking. You can't. Intent doesn't mean that. Intent means, what do we see? Like, take a step back, look at this play, and if you were a person who was not trying to choke someone, are these the actions you would take? If you were not trying to choke Bouchard right now, would you grab him from behind, wrap your hand around his throat, and then use your other hand to reach over and cinch against your hand that's pressed against the throat for extra pressure, like a WWE wrestler would? And then when you feel someone tapping, not let go. Are these the types of actions that somebody who wasn't trying to choke someone would do? What does he look closer to a person trying to choke his opponent or closer to a person that doesn't have any intention of choking his opponent? That's the way I look at it. And I know I saw a lot of comments saying, everybody grabs people from behind. And my answer to that is yes. A lot of times they do. In my world, in my NHL, that wouldn't happen all the time. I go hard on after the whistle stuff. I go hard on scrum antics. I'm not a big scrum guy. I don't enjoy scrums. I don't find it fun to watch. I think it drags the game down. So I don't have any patience for these types of shenanigans. But I recognize that in today's NHL, it happens all the time. Yes. But even in today's NHL, how many times do we see a player ask, let go, It doesn't ever come to that. So I'm going to have to assume that there's something a little bit more unique about this situation than others. I don't think Ekblad dared to choke Bouchard out. He certainly wanted to inflict enough discomfort to send a message. Hence a slippery slope. Absolutely. I agree. That's where I'm at with it too. I'm not accusing Ekblad of being a serial killer. It's not like that. These guys play in a completely different environment than most hockey games are played. They play with the stakes much higher than most hockey players have to play in a league that constantly wants them at the height of frustration and constantly at the breaking point. That's the way these players have to play the game. The environment is set up to create situations like this. This is what the NHL wants because they think this is what the fans want. This will bring people in the seats. They want the fighting. They want the intensity. We're talking about a league. Remember, I had flashbacks to this. Not that long ago in the playoffs, Ryan Reeves grabbed Graves' head, drove him down to the ice, put his knee on his head, ripped his helmet off, used his bare hand, threw his glove off, and used his bare hand to pull hair out of Graves' head while on the ice. And then in the NHL player safety hearing, he admitted as such. He said, yes, I was mad at a hit he threw earlier, so I pulled hair out of his head. And it was like, what? What did he get? I don't remember what he got for that, but it wasn't what you should get for pulling hair out of someone's scalp intentionally because you were mad at something they did a whole period ago that you had time to sit in a room and relax and think about it. And you thought about it so much that you still thought it was a good idea to pull his hair out of his head. Like that was in the back of your mind as something to do. So that's the NHL. These players functioning, and yet Ryan Reaves, like when you tell that story, you should think, how does he even play another game? And yet he does, right? Like, so when I say was he choking him and all that, like we have to keep that in context. I think some stranger is exactly right. I don't think he thought about choking him to the point that he wanted to hurt him or, damage his life in any way or whatever, right? He just wanted to send a message, and it just so happens that he made it a little uncomfortable. Whatever. If the guy has a hard time breathing, it's fine, right? And what do you do with that? I don't even know what I would do that, to be honest. I mean, I suggested a 10-game suspension. There's nothing in the rule book, oddly enough, about choking. There's no rule that specifically says choking. Now, Joe, I am going to address what you said. Thank you for the comment, Bob. Joe, I will talk about it because it's fun, and you're coming on here, and I'll talk about it again. But yeah, the choking to me, like for my scale, I don't think choking should be the same as the equivalent, I guess, of somebody just giving a face wash in a scrum, right? Like it wasn't even called a penalty, and yet it wasn't even called a penalty. For me, you would get a penalty for grabbing someone from behind and pulling them away aggressively. There should be an automatic penalty, which there is during gameplay, for pulling people's helmets off in scrums. A face wash is supposed to be a 2-minute roughing in the rule book. They just don't call it, but it's supposed to be an automatic 2-minute roughing according to the rule book. Punches, how many punches did we see after the whistle? That's supposed to be automatic. Those are the things that would start to be called in my book, and then people will say, well, you won't have any players left to play the game because they'd all be in the box because everybody does that. But players are smarter than people give them credit for. Players will adjust when they crack down on obstruction interference. The players adjusted. Now we don't see that anymore. We don't see a parade of people going to the box any more than we normally did. They just stopped doing it. They found other ways to defend besides holding. And now the game is better for it. When they did a crackdown, that 2-week crackdown, and then they stopped, but for 2 weeks, they cracked down on cross-checking. And the players adjusted. There was an obscene number of cross-check calls when they did that. I know they went overboard. I get it. They did the same thing in minor hockey when they introduced the 2 and 10 for an illegal check to the head. Kids were getting 12 minutes left, right, and center. But after a while, not very long, it settled down, and now the game is better for it, in my opinion. Players will adjust. They're smart. We won't see that parade to the penalty box, and then we'd have a game with less antics after the whistle, more play between whistles, and hopefully more good, solid body contact, body checking. That's the way I look at it. So, Joe, that video was, I put a tweet underneath it and posted my own video. It was, it was misleading. For sure. That's a good word. It's misleading because it starts after the contact was made. It absolutely is knee contact, and I'm going to put this video up again just for you. I put a video on my YouTube just tonight that's why the show was a couple minutes late, because I saw that tweet and I wanted to get this video uploaded of Louis Sternen not faking. He is not faking. Here's the video that I put on my YouTube channel tonight to address that video that makes it look like he missed, because he clearly did not miss. Look at this here. And again, I don't know why I've watched this so many times tonight. Look at how uncomfortably that knee bends backwards, man. Like, that is 1,000%. Whether you, like I said, whether you think the knee was intentional or whether it was just an unfortunate accident, it definitely happened. That is uncomfortable to watch. And again, I can't believe how many times I've seen it over the course of today. 2 games for that? Thanks, Bob. I couldn't remember. 2 games for that. For pulling someone's hair out of their scalp in a premeditated act that you admit to in your hearing. Saying, yeah, I did it. I did it on purpose. I wanted to do it because of this. 2 games. Jesus, man. That's insane to me. What exactly is the rule on cross checks? What do you mean by that? Permissible or not? I mean, no, cross checks are not permissible. I don't know what the rule is that they call, because they certainly allow. I think the rule on cross checks is you have to do 3 in quick succession before you're called for 1 penalty. I think that's the rule on cross checks. Even if you get them in the head, it's okay as long as you do it just once. If you do it twice or more in quick succession, you get a penalty. Cross-checking is a funny rule because the way the rule is written, it doesn't say anything about part of the body. It has nothing to do with it. You can cross-check someone in the neck, and feasibly, it's not a penalty if it's not forceful enough. The cross-checking rule is all about force. Was the force enough to warrant a penalty? It doesn't matter what part of the body. To me, the cross-checking rule, and cross-checking would go way down if they simplified it. To me, there is no hockey purpose for cross-checking anyone above the pants. There's just no hockey purpose for it. You don't need to cross-check someone in the back, especially where they like to, between the top of the pants and the bottom of the shoulder pad, that lower back area that's wide open, the kidneys and stuff. They intentionally target that area all the time because they know it's going to hurt. If they would just say any cross check above the pants is an automatic penalty, then they would solve a lot of their own problems. And then any cross check that's to the neck or higher. So a lot of people say, well, I meant to hit him in the shoulder, and it slipped up and got him in the neck of their head. To me, that's pathetic as an excuse. Because why were you cross-checking them in the shoulder? Why would you ever need your stick to be that high? Whoops, I accidentally only hit the shoulder enough that it didn't even stop my stick from riding up and hitting into the guy's head. So I don't deserve a 5-minute major for hitting him in the head because I meant to hit him 2 inches lower than his head. Come on. So to me, they could solve a world of problems if any cross check above the pants automatic, any cross check down low below the pants is the force. That's when it's forceful. And I think it would save a lot of the little pushes too that we see. We don't know what to do about those dangerous ones where players are going to the boards and then you just give them a light push in the pants. Because the rule is based on force, it's very difficult to call those because they're not forceful enough to call a cross-checking penalty. So the players are smart enough. Like I said, they're really smart and they adjust to rules and the standards by which they're called. They know that it's not forceful enough to get a penalty, but it is forceful enough to take a player skating at high speed and knock them off balance. That's why they do it. It intentionally is designed to knock an opponent off stride. Unfortunately, that means they're going to go careening into the boards. And sometimes they call it, sometimes they don't. What are you going to do? If you had stricter cross-checking rules, you wouldn't see that. Players would have to find other ways to defend. And they would. They're smart. They're good. These are the best players in the world. We can hold them to that standard because they should be capable of playing to that standard. To me, if you're in front of the net and you can't defend someone in front of the net, you can't clear your front of the net, you can't battle and win body position on someone without cross-checking him in the back of the head, you don't deserve to be in the NHL. That's the way I look at it. If you have to cross-check someone in the back, in the upper back, in the neck, in the head to defend against them, then you don't belong there. You're not good enough to compete at that level. So get out of the game. That's the way I look at it. that is that is all the clips I was going to play. For those of you that were new, maybe we'll post this, right, and you can watch it again at a later date. So for what I covered was, well, we did the Ekblad choking, the Bennett collision with McDavid, where he did that butt end punch. We did the Draisaitl illegal hit on Barkov. We did that potential delay of game for puck over glass by Florida that would have put the Oilers 5-on-3, but I think it was the right call not to call it. We did the Fogle knee and the Bennett trip on Bouchard. So what I will do, I guess, there's about 5 minutes to an hour, so we're at 55 minutes. What I'll do is I'll hang out maybe for the next couple of minutes and just see if anyone has any questions or anything they want to talk about from last night. If not, that's fine. If I don't see any questions in the next minute or so, then I'll just leave. While I'm waiting for questions, I'll tell you that for those that don't know, I have my own YouTube channel. It's just Tough Call. If you go to YouTube and search Tough Call, you can see all the videos that I talked about here because they're posted on my own YouTube channel. And I post a lot more than that too. I post a lot of stuff on there, and I have stuff that I still haven't posted from game 1 too. Games 1 and 2, there's still clips I haven't got to because there's just so friggin' many, right? So I'll be posting in the next couple days pretty regularly, and I'm on, I still call it Twitter, at Tough Call Pod. I spend a lot of time there. And of course, I'm part of the Heavy Hockey Network. So if you go to heavyhockey.com, you'll see some of my articles there. And yeah, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to the Heavy Hockey YouTube channel. And if you would go to Tough Call on YouTube, because you're watching this on the Heavy Hockey Network, if you go to Tough Call after the show ends and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Tough Call as well, I would super appreciate that. It would help me out drastically, and I've picked up quite a number of subscribers over this playoffs. I'm well over 5,000 now. I picked up about 100 just in the last 24 hours because I posted videos, I guess, that people like to argue about, which is what prompted this this podcast episode. If you'd like to see more episodes like this as well, please reach out and let me know that you liked it, or put some comments in here and let me know that you liked it, and it will motivate me to do this more. I think this was a lot of fun I love talking about stuff like this. It's a lot of fun for me, and to have those comments to talk about it too, that was a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed this. Tough Call YouTube. Look for my videos in the next couple of days, and I can't believe that we have to wait till Thursday for the next game. That sucks. It's going to be a long wait, but I'll definitely be watching. I've had enough of the officiating stuff. Oilers simply need to bring their A game from now on. Absolutely. The Oilers can play better. They will play better. They have 3 days to figure out that penalty kill, to look at the tape and figure out that penalty kill. I think they're going to figure it out. I think it'll be a different game in Edmonton. I have high hopes. I have my superstitions going. I'll be sure to be sitting in the right chair and eating the right thing at the right time and making sure that I do my part to ensure a win for Edmonton. But thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and good night.